So we're really excited to have Rick with us today. Hi, Rick.
Hello.
Welcome, Rick.
Great to be here.
Welcome to the studio.
Mm-hmm.
It's been fun to have people kind of come in once in a while. Sometimes it's me and Ted talking to each other across the table, and it's always nice to have another voice, other memories and stories to pick from. And so we've been wanting to have you here, Rick, to kind of give us some perspective and stories about the history of worship at Seeds, which is it's a big task.
Yes, that's a big task.
We're not looking at a specific era, but just kind of like over the span of time. In our other episodes, we've talked a lot about how Seeds evolved through lots of different seasons of being a church, like when we experimented with different things. And I feel like in the area of music and worship, we also have gone through quite a collective journey of what worship means and how we do worship.
Yes, so true. So true. Like when you think back 25 years ago, just where things were at and where we're at today, it's been quite a journey, and it hasn't been a straight line.
No. And sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say, the reason why Rick is, I think, a really good person to speak into this. His present vocation is he's a money manager, which
financial planner.
Sorry, financial planner, not a money manager.
Get your lingo right.
He's a money changer, tax collector.
Oh dear. Going to the parables now.
Where are you going with this, hon?
No, but Rick started off as you had lots of experience as leading singing at camp, so with a guitar, and then you were a professional conductor, you were a teacher, and you conduct choirs to this day. So you have a very, very well-rounded musical understanding and education, and most importantly, you've been with Seeds right from the very beginning. So you have been on the front lines of shifts and changes and stuff. So very much looking forward to this.
What's a good place to start? Like, do you want to tell us a little bit about, like, when you look, without looking at a specific era, maybe when you look at as a whole at either your own experience leading worship or the identity of worship at Seeds, what comes to mind? Like,
well, going back to the beginning, Connie and I think were 25 when we first came out here, and we were just so energetic and green, and it was tantalizing to be able to be part of a new congregation and just start from scratch and sort of invent things as we go. And the way we started at Seeds was almost out of necessity. You look around the room, well, what do we have? We it's not like we had an abundance of organists. We had a few guitar players, right? And so we kind of started there, and we didn't have a set of hymnals. So this is when PowerPoint was sort of a new thing, and the video screen was kind of the new stained glass window. So it just felt so new and innovative. And 25 years later, it's kind of laughable because it's just kind of become part of the milieu of what we do. But from the start, there was a sense that was just important to the people that were involved in Seeds, that singing just was in our DNA, and many people had just come from singing traditions either in their churches or in their high school choirs or whatever. And so it felt like that was a pretty important piece of what we were doing. And I think it continues to be, because it just allows us to explore worship and faith together through song, and what a lovely way to do it.
Mm-hmm. When I think about it, it kind of strikes me that there's a lot of things to celebrate in terms of like sometimes when people can't connect to anything, they can connect to music. They may not be able to connect to words. They may be in a really difficult place, but music has had a way of reaching people when a lot of other things don't. So that's one piece. We've also, I think, throughout the history of Seeds, struggled a fair bit with what worship is, with how we should sing, with the theology of music, with the interaction between the people leading and the people receiving or singing. You know, there's been so many wrestles within it that I think are good wrestles to have.
I think it's taken many of us out of our comfort zones, because a lot of what we were doing, we kind of had to invent it, and there wasn't a manual, and it's not like we could just look back. Well, what have we done here? Well, 5 years ago, we didn't even exist, so we didn't do anything. So then you look around, what are the influences? And so, and Sunday comes every week, so I think we just went with it and used kind of what was around us. But yeah, I remember this, even just the concept of being a worship leader, like for many, it was just a massive crisis, because they knew what to sing, but they didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
So how do we kind of connect things? And there was, especially at the beginning, there was a lot of conversation about that. And just, I think, everyone's sense of inadequacy, but yet I think that's a piece that we wanted. We didn't just want song this, song that, song boom, boom, boom. We wanted everything to kind of connect and to tell a broader story. And I think we've come a long way, but it never ends, right? There's always things to work on. But it has been definitely a very interesting journey. I don't know if we want to kind of get into the chronological order of things, but
sure, go for it.
But if we kind of think back, if I think back to the beginning. We were in the choral room at Mueller, and we had who we had, which was just a bunch of enthusiastic people, but actually some pretty good musicians, some good vocalists and instrumentalists. And in that small little room, we had to figure out, how are we going to make this all work? And we used a sound system, which is kind of laughable because the room wasn't very big.
No, that's very true.
I seem to remember Connie very much vying for a no sound system.
And even I was a little resistant, just because coming from a camp background with my acoustic guitar, I sort of felt like, no, we don't want to use all this technology. We were I had my long hair as a bit of a hippie wannabe. Let's keep this simple, and I remember, I don't know who it was, whether it was Ted or maybe it was even Kerwin. You do know that a guitar at one point was new technology, and just pushing me on that. And I said, well, true enough.
Yeah.
And so we used, I think, the W.C. Mueller sound system that was 20, 30 years old.
I think we actually purchased the sound system so that they could use it. That was part of the agreement, and then we used it. And honestly, I still have some PTSD from all of the setups and takedowns the crash course of learning how to make things sound good.
Yeah. And we had to all make it happen on that day. We came early, we set it up, we rehearsed, the service happened, and then we had to clean it all up and make sure that this room was ready to roll for Monday for the choir program. Yeah. It was wild, but boy, did we ever learn a lot. And I think that really set us up for the next phase, because I don't think we were ever thinking this is where we were going to stay. So it was a lot of work, and good thing, at least I was in my 20s. I had the energy for it. And we had kids. Like, it was so intense. But I don't know, you just felt like you were doing this for some greater purpose. But I certainly wouldn't do it now.
Yeah. I wonder too, something that's I've been thinking about as we've been talking is what was influencing us, all of us, in kind of the picture that we had about what worship, especially around music, would look like. And I think of, 1990, many of us were a part of the huge world conference that we experienced in Winnipeg. Like, thousands of people, multicultural music, very multicultural group of musicians, but large experiential worship. And so you feel something just by the size of the group that you're a part of. And then I think about 1995, all three of us were a part of a major youth conference in Wichita. I mean, you were actually on the program as one of the announcement slash comedians.
Right. MC.
Rick and Rick.
Rick, yeah. And I just remember like the music was very experiential for us. Like even the young people that we brought there, like it just felt so good and you felt a part of something. And I just feel like we were carrying these experiences in us. And then we'd been to some churches where we'd experienced that. That would be an experience on a Sunday morning. And we just thought like, hey, why not us? Like, why couldn't we do something like that? And then we sort of like jumped in, like we could actually get to that. In a local Sunday morning service. I wonder if you think how that impacted us.
Well, it was an interesting time in history. It was an incredibly prolific period of sort of worship song writing.
Yeah.
Like the amount of songs that came out in that kind of probably from 95 to 2005 during those 10 years. It was incredible. It felt like there was a new song every day, and they just had such tremendous energy to them. I think we were just caught up in that. Yeah. And I think I appreciated the tradition that I grew up in, but it was very traditional, and I think we were looking for something that maybe had more of a reflection in the culture that was happening at the time. And so because we were new, like we could just literally do whatever we wanted. And so I think like so many of these songs, I think they were actually pretty catchy, and they were easy to remember and learn. So like I wrote down a few classics here,
this is good.
Like Not Be Shaken.
Oh,
yes.
That came out in 1997, the year of the flood.
Who wrote that song? Like,
it was a Vineyard songwriter.
Yeah, so and the Vineyard Church too is just pumping out a lot of tunes, and there was lots of shouting, like Shout to the Lord and Shout to the North, all the shouting songs, and Mighty to Save and The Secret. One of my favorites was Lord Reign in Me. Yeah. Lord, reign in me, reign in your power. And like you could like that's where we were trying to figure out how do we arrange songs and stuff, and it was we found it's so powerful. The whole band cuts out and just everyone starts clapping, and in our heads this would just be awesome. And then in reality, trying to get everyone to clap was actually that was a struggle. Kind of had to, okay, you just take your hands, put them together, just follow me, and awkwardly everyone went okay.
Do you remember one of the Shout to the Lord songs was when we would make like a big circle in the whole auditorium?
Yes.
Even Minnow Friesen got into a circle.
No way.
Yes.
Against his will.
We got people up and around.
But it was a period also of tension in terms of worship. And I don't know if you remember this conference we went to that Hear the Music put on. John Buller was sort of part of that organization, and I think he was quite influential in what we did, because I think he was trying to do some innovative things. And there was a speaker. His name was Paul Assard, and he just talked about how divisive the church had become at the time between hymns and choruses. And he said his language was that it seemed like we were okay to put on the boxing gloves for that issue. There was no grace for that. And now you think of that like, if that was our only problem now, and that our only divisiveness was between hymns and choruses.
What a privilege.
Right. But that's just where things were at. And he encouraged us to tell the whole story. Broaden your story. Some songs just tell one part, but the breadth of our story is huge. So use whatever you can to draw in. And so I think even though there was a lot of these things going on, these sort of popular church movements, I think we were also pretty good at trying to find songs that were us, because a lot of them weren't. And a lot of them, like, how many praise songs can you do? that tells one story. It's an important part of the story, but not the whole story. And one of the things that I will always laugh about is I don't know if this was a John Buller song, but I could sing of your love forever. I could sing of your love forever. He performed it or led it.
Yeah, it was either came out of Hillsong or it came out of Vineyard.
Okay.
And it got picked up by a bunch of different kind of groups that were more kind of like, I can't think of the names anymore. But
I know what story you're going to tell. Tell
but
it.
there's one member of our community.
Say it.
Should we say his name?
Yeah.
James Dell. I remember him coming up to me after the service when I did this song, and it really lent itself to lots of repetition. Like you could really riff on that motive. And he said, actually, I can't sing of his love forever.
I am all done singing.
5 minutes is pushing.
I can do it for a bit, but actually not forever. Fair enough. So I think over the years there was music that has come and gone, but there have been other songs I think that have kind of stood the test of time, and it'd be interesting to kind of I don't think we don't have time to do it now, but why? Like why do some of these songs kind of go away and others not? But it's certainly interesting over our history, just what kind of what's been popular, and it's just like in popular culture, some things just are really big for a bit. Wham is huge for a bit, and then Wham's gone. Now Wham's back. But whatever song you think of, but these massive movements, especially when we think about. What's the Hillsong? Yeah, like Hillsong pumped out a ton of stuff, not just in that time frame, but all the way into the 2000s, and I think like even sort of 2015,
even the last decade.
Yeah. And there too, like sometimes there were certain songs that I think worked for us, and there are other songs like I don't think that's us. Yeah. And so like they were just so incredibly epic, and we always had to be careful about like how epic are we going to go? Yeah. And we were, I think, very good at kind of making things scalable and kind of thinking like, well, what's us? What's our community? And what makes sense to us?
That really connects with, I think in a previous episode we just recorded talking about how we tried different things on, which is essentially what you're saying, like, especially in the first decade of our life as a church, like what is us, and how that idea of like exploring different expressions and trying different modes of worship, and some of them really fit, even if they were new. So it felt like, oh, this is exciting and a new way to explore faith by what we're singing. And other stuff has kind of like you said, gone to the wayside, and you wouldn't necessarily see that. But what do you think? Like, does that seem like do you have good memories of that exploration?
I do. It was fun. Like the beginning part at the choral room was kind of a very safe place for us to experiment. But once the exchange was set up, and I think Polar Sound helped us get the sound system in, Bruce Neufeld. And so once that was all established, and the fact that we didn't have to set up so much, we could start to focus a little bit more just actually on the craft. And there was a whole stretch of years there where we were very diligent, and we had rehearsals during the week, and the groups, like everything grew, it seemed, once we got into the building. Was that 2003?
Yep.
So for the next couple of years, everything just seemed to expand. The amount of people that came on a Sunday morning expanded, and also our worship teams expanded. So we for a number of years we worked with John Lepke, who is an incredible musician, just incredibly artistic, creative, and had a real passion for worship. And he was very helpful in helping us hone our craft. He was a very good arranger of songs, an incredible musician, especially on the guitar. And so we really expanded. Like there was space in the music to have some guitar solos and things of that nature. And like that was exciting to kind of figure out how do we do all of this, and then beyond that, I remember at one point things got so big and epic. I think we did have to be a little reflective and say, okay, I think we have ultimately taken the voice of the congregation away.
Yeah.
Right. I think we were having so much fun that we kind of went in one direction, and then you go, okay, all right, and let's
performance
take
oriented.
it right.
Yeah.
Not that was ever the intent, but I remember us having that conversation and then drawing in AccuSound. I thought that was really pivotal in our movement through this whole worship experience, bringing in Evan and Lynette Giesbrecht, professional sound engineers that helped us clear the sound up a little bit and really figure out how do we not take the voice away of the congregation. And it just felt like, even though we were using amplification, we moved into this new realm of it sounding more natural and really sort of drawing out participation. So that too, like it was, so that's exciting as well. And really training our sound people. And you just have to think about all of the volunteers that we've had over the years. So not just the musicians, but all the tech people doing VPU, and then the whole structure of it, like a shout out to Joan Funk, who kind of started us off. Like there's all these artistic musicians, right? Yeah. Great, but they forget to show up, and it's like so like it was a whole machine. Weekly reminders, creating a schedule, coordinating stuff, and all of that. And it just felt like, after a while we just kind of we found our spot, and I think the singing. Like at times, there's this feeling of camaraderie and connection and community that how else do you get it but in singing? Well, there's other ways, of course, right? But singing, it's so very powerful, and you can never plan it, but there's just some moments where you are just filled and inspired.
Yeah, that's such a good point about the voice of the congregation. Like, I feel like, I have a hard time kind of putting brackets around where this sort of shifted and became different. But I think you're right. There was definitely a move for a while there, we had very much like a rock band kind of vibe coming from the stage. Like, it was like like a drum kit and stuff. I can't remember the last time a drum kit has been set up on our stage. Like, it's been maybe 6, 7, 8 years since we had that. Everything's kind of pared down a lot.
And that's interesting because, as all of this, some of these really epic hill songs are being written, like 10,000 Reasons and Oceans, these Matt Redman tunes. Yeah. All of a sudden, there was this group called the Wren Collective that came along.
Right.
And they had very different instrumentation. Yeah. And they used a lot of cajon. Yeah. And that was the death of the drum kit. I don't know, but
now it's a little box.
The drum was very challenging. A drum kit can only play so quietly. And there was only so many ways I could tell the drummer to play quietly. Like, I had to be very creative to, how do we bring that down? And I think that's what really helped with Lynette and Evan, was that they talked to us a lot about just the different frequencies of different instruments. And if you have too many instruments in the same frequency range, well, you can't hear anything else. Yeah. And so, even just the mics we used, we got a subwoofer. Do you remember that? Yeah. And that actually got the drum into a lower frequency so that it really wouldn't bother everything else. And it's like, this is so much clearer. So, and we put we always had the drum kit in a timeout box and that shield, and then they would
pretty much a penalty box,
But we made it work. But the cajon has certainly lowered the stage sound and just it cleans up the sound. But if we had someone that really wanted to play drums, we'd make it happen. But everyone just really jumped on board with this.
Yeah. I was thinking too, was it driven by the people that we had? Like, was it when we didn't have drummers that we moved to the Cajon, or was it that we were just being moved? It's really interesting to hear you say like, oh yeah, Ren Collective. That was like, okay, that was a group that came about that was like, this feels a bit more earthy.
Yes. That's a good word, actually.
Yeah. And you even see it in the culture, right? Because like you move to, like you go from kind of like U2 being sort of at the center of everything happening, and next thing it's like Mumford and Sons, which becomes almost as big as U2 in its time, but a very different vibe. Banjo, acoustic guitar, and maybe not even a kit at all. Maybe just a bass drum that the leader is playing at the front, and just...
And many of them grew up in the vineyard tradition, right? Which is interesting.
Exactly, yeah. So, one thing that it's also thinking about is that we often, maybe we kind of pared down, we became more minimalist in our every Sunday stuff, but then we always seem to kind of ramp it up for Christmas for many years. And like we did like the Let It Be Christmas with Beatles music. And then we would pick songs like from Coldplay or from Mumford, or we would Pink, and we'd sing these songs as part of our Christmas, and they would not be the traditional Christmas songs. They would be completely, in a sense, from left field, and yet they would connect to what we were doing in either the play or the spoken word or whatever. And so we got these chances to really put a lot of energy, but only for a small period of time, not trying to do something every Sunday, which, let's be honest, takes a lot of energy.
It does. A ton of energy, and you just can't have all this stuff just appear out of thin air. It's work. It's a lot of work. And I think over the years too, it's been a sustainability piece too, right? For our own energy. But I don't think it's compromised anything. In fact, I think us, often the best solution is the simplest solution, and I think that's kind of what we've come to. I think there's still a lot of creativity in the music, but it's just maybe not the same scale. And that seems to be a trend just in the church in general. Like many congregations are getting smaller, and maybe that's okay. These closer, smaller communities, there's some beauty in that too. But Christmas was always that opportunity for us to play. And because we have we have had and continue to have amazing musicians, and it's really great sometimes to just let them go. Because when we're leading worship, it really isn't a performance. Yeah. It's an invitation to bring people in and to just provide this context to allow people to be more open, and it allows people to quiet their thoughts, and so we're all singing together. But at Christmas time, it is a performance for sure. Yeah. And it's always fun, and I've been in almost all of them, and we'll be in it again this year, and just always look forward to it. And that is purely due to some people pouring in a lot of energy into it over the years. Yeah. So yourselves included. But I think, I think it's something that people really get excited about each year.
Yeah, totally. I mean, shout outs to like Kurt Friesen.
Yes.
Who often we've asked to put the band together, does the arranging of the songs, figuring out keys, and just all that logistical stuff to make it sound really good. And then be kind of the backbone to the music.
Yes. Yeah. He's the band leader.
Yeah.
No.
We're at a bit of a standstill here.
Well, some of the other things that I thought were significant over our period was there were certain elements that have been there all along. So we've kind of meandered through sort of these different influences, whether it's a little Vineyard or a little Hillsong or whatever. But a few things I wanted to note was the music of Steve Bell has actually been with us from the beginning and continues to play a really significant part in what we do. He is a great example of someone telling a really wide story.
Yes.
And his music has such depth. And I think one of our favorite songs is "Gotta Be Here by the Water." Anytime we do that, just people come alive, and like it's like we can't do it every Sunday, but almost like it is beloved. And he's even come and met with us as worship leaders, and he has such a wonderful way about leading worship. Because one of the things you have to maneuver through is like music can be very, what's the word? Like you can really manipulate people with music.
Yeah.
And that has never been our intention,
Right.
is to be manipulative. But it's invitational, and it really creates an atmosphere. And so when people arrive on a Sunday morning, it's been busy for them, and they kind of come a little out of breath. And so he always said, take people where they're at.
Yeah.
This is like, let's move them now, and let's get them into a frame. And that's not manipulation. That's just providing this environment. And so he has been very, very helpful. I think the songs from Camps with Meaning that's been another thing. So talk about telling different parts of the story. There seemed to be this missing element of peace to many songs, and I think that's where Camps with Meaning found their niche. Is they're looking around at the same music that we're looking at and saying, this doesn't tell the whole story. So then you have all these great songs out there, like and quite frankly, they're the songs I'm probably most comfortable with, because that's where I got started in all of this. Without camp, I don't think I'd be doing any music. But like we sing "This Ground" and "Go in Peace." Now may the Lord of Peace, lots of peace, Mountain of God, You Are the Way, like all these great songs.
And a lot of those songs written locally, like written
in Manitoba.
by people in Manitoba.
Yeah.
Steve Bell, Manitoba. It's
Right,
like contextual in a way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so true.
And then then the hymn tradition as well. That's something that is still very well received, especially if it's something that's well known. So we, throughout our time, we have taken hymns and we've arranged them as best we can, because we do have some piano players, and we've done that, but we're not exactly set up for it.
Yeah.
And so
those dang organists have never showed up.
That's right. But one of my favorite songs to lead is "I Sing the Mighty Power of God."
Oh, yeah.
And there are just moments where I can just back away from the guitar, and we just all know it. And and even at Easter, like "Up from the grave he rose," like in 4-part harmonies.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. So that too, we've been able to pepper that in as well. Now we still don't have hymnals, but maybe at some point, who knows? But there's such good stuff out there, and I think we're now at a point where there's just a lot to choose from, and I think the current leadership that's guiding our worship service is doing a great job. Ashley Wientz, and I think Gary is helping, and Jordan Siemens, and I think there's others, but they help us. As worship leaders, to provide a list of songs that we do for a certain season in the church calendar. And that really helps me, because then I don't have to kind of scour the internet. Like, what am I going to do today? Here it is.
Thousands and thousands of songs.
Where am I going to go? And I think for the congregation, you just get this familiarity, and we all kind of live and breathe these songs. And I just love the focus on just tell the story. And so I don't know if the words of Paul Lessard just subliminally landed in our ears, but I think we've been doing that for 20 years. Is like let's tell this story, and let's not just limit ourselves to we're just going to tell this slice. Because we've tried to do it musically, and I think we've, as a congregation, also done it just with the issues that life have brought us. We haven't shied away from digging into difficult stories, right? Because it would just be easy to do. Hey, let's just do happy rock songs. Everything's good, So yeah, hats off to I think what's going on right now.
Yeah. I think some of those conversations around the big story, as you say, kind of give us a big enough playground, for lack of a better word, to meet God, whether that's in joy, whether that's in lament, in doubt. I think of like, there was a pretty concerted effort at some point, maybe you would know more, Rick, about when that started, about when people were saying like, where are the songs of lament, or where are the songs of justice? Like in the praise and worship kind of genre, maybe those were lacking. And,
yeah, I mean, it's interesting that because some of like when we were getting started, the song I always feel like, oh, we should bring that back sometime. See if we could bring that one back. It's "Come Now Is the Time to Worship." It was a Brian Dirksen song. Did you have it on your list there, Rick?
I did.
You did, yeah. And like Brian Dirksen was, like he was an icon, not just in vineyard worship. Like he was very much a part of North American vineyard. He's a Canadian from the West, and then he went to England. And he seemed to be a part of sort of some new kind of vibes that were coming out of England around vineyard. So it was just it was shifting things. And then at some point, I mean, Brian, I don't know, in some ways I think he probably deconstructed somewhat theologically, and he started asking questions like, not enough lament, and he was, he wrote just a haunting lament after the graves were found in Kamloops a number of years ago. He wrote just a haunting song to memorialize that what happened there. And I just thought, you looked at that Brian Dirksen, and then you think about the Brian Dirksen of the 80s. Yeah. Wrote a bunch of huge vineyard praise and worship hits that people were singing forever. And just interesting to see even how those people evolved. Steve Bell's another one. I mean, we saw him for the very first time at World Conference. He did a cafe in the blue and gold room at Winnipeg Stadium. And we bought his cassette, Comfort My People. And we were just just blown away by this. And then, to this day, he continues to make music that's fresh and evolving, and he's just a great light to churches all across North America, including to us. So it's really neat to see how you could see how shifting was happening there too. And music just seems to be moving past, like as Jim Griffith would say, it's no longer the dog and pony show, but moving to something more authentic and intimate and sensible to the people that are doing it. It's not, we still like our Taylor Swift, Coldplay, large venue concerts. I mean, they're powerful, but that's not the heartbeat of a local congregation of 100 people.
Yeah, you can't do that Sunday after Sunday. So that certainly has its place, but if you're looking to have, people gather and to have a point of connecting, singing is just such a great way to do it. And you, like the voice alone, your voice connects with another voice, connects with another voice. Something happens in the midst of it. And like, as you mentioned before, I do a lot of choral conducting, and we have done some choirs here and there during the life of Seeds, and it just always blows my mind what the voice can do, and something happens that you just get these shivers down your spine, and it's just a bunch of voices. There's no lights. There's nothing electronic. It's our voices and. Yeah, so I think that really takes the pressure off of us, and I think way back when we started, like there was a bit of this pressure to have the what's it called, the dog? What'd you call it? The dog
and pony show.
That's totally right, the dog and pony show, and
don't have dogs or ponies, but we're gonna do it.
We have neither, but. Yeah, it's interesting how we've sort of just come kind of full circle on all of this.
Yeah.
I know, like, just for myself personally, I there have definitely been times where, I mean, usually I'm sitting at the front, in the front of the space, but where the voices of the people behind me and around me have deeply moved me. Like I just even saying it now gets me kind of emotional, because sometimes it would be because I didn't know if I could sing the words of a song.
Yes. Yeah.
And I could basically be there and not sing the words of a song, either because that day I couldn't affirm it or was like for whatever reason, right? But then to hear the like just the rising of other people's voices, and I think sometimes it saved me. Like it just it's a very mysterious thing, like kind of like we're kind of picking up on different things. Like sometimes it's like you're talking about a subwoofer and levels and stuff like that, and those things sound really technical, but they actually are about deeply things that deeply matter in terms of what happens when you bring a group of people together, and what matters when you try to lead them somewhere, and not in a way that is controlling, but in a way that invites and really it's kind of an odd thing in some ways to think that we're all singing the same words, and maybe half the time we don't even believe the words we're saying, and maybe sometimes we want to believe the words we're saying, or maybe sometimes they're exactly what we're feeling and we never knew how to say it, and then this melody gives us an opportunity to say it, whether it's joy or praise, or whether it's like, how long, oh Lord, you know?
And singing's participatory. You're not just sitting on the sidelines. You're actively involved in it. And that's what, one of the challenges when you get so many people together is, well, how do we all have participation without creating absolute chaos? And singing sure is a great way to focus everyone doing the same thing. But I think we've also wrestled with how much, like we don't want to be perfectionists, but we also want to really remove distractions. So that's why we've kind of worked at a bunch of things, just so that like how distracting is it for when the sound, like when we get a bunch of feedback, and how distracting is it if you can't hear the vocalist but you hear something you're not supposed to hear? All these things, right? So you put in a ton of effort just to make it sound natural. But at the same time, you could really go too far and just do it for perfection's sake. And so I think we manage that well, because not everything goes perfectly. And big deal, you mess up some words, the slide doesn't advance at the right time. Right. We're human, and almost like if it was too perfect, I think that wouldn't speak either. And none of us are perfect. We do the best we can, and I think through it all, like it's I think when people just talk about Seeds in general, it always comes back to the people and to the community, and like all of this has just, at the end of the day, been a great excuse to get together with really great people. Baseline, there's been so much more, but I think we've really built a neat community. And you depending on who you lead with on a given Sunday, it's always it's just neat to interact with people in that capacity. And then it gives you a way to interact with the congregation, and then everyone's interacting because we're all singing together. Like, and we're just focusing on the music part of worship, right? There's so many more pieces, but it has certainly been significant, and I think it's been one of the things we've kind of been known for. Not that we want to get too prideful or anything.
No,
in a very humble way.
In a very humble way.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to bring this to a close. Thank you so much, Rick, you did a great job of again reminding us of things that we'd forgotten about. So
and thank you also just for being a consistent, really beautiful voice. I think one of your gifts, besides how you lead other people, is I think you've always been really good at the story piece, like connecting people and telling funny stories, or just connecting to to what's going on. So from your ponytail days to to your not ponytail
Your
days
financial
now.
planner, very serious days.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much for having me. This was kind of fun to reflect on all of this, and I think this podcast memoir is just a great idea, a really good way for us to reflect on what has happened, because it's just so easy to go on with life.
Yeah.
And it's fun to kind of step back into those years and remember the good, the bad, and the ugly, all of it. But it's
Where we've
it's
come
beautiful.
from. Yeah. Well, thank you.